The House chamber was already buzzing by the time Senator John Kennedy stepped into the Joint Committee session. It wasn't a typical hearing. It was a special oversight meeting hastily arranged after weeks of fiery back and forth between Democratic Representative Maxine Waters and several Republican senators. The entire political world had been watching the tension build like a summer storm. Kennedy walked with his usual unhurried, almost deceptively casual gait, a thin folder under his arm and an expression that looked like he had just wandered out of a Louisiana diner instead of a Capitol Hill hearing. Cameras clicked instantly. Staffers whispered. Even members who normally paid no attention suddenly leaned forward. Maxine Waters was already seated, radiating the sort of confidence that came from 3 decades of political combat. Her colorful jacket made her stand out against the sea of grays and blacks around her. She had a stack of papers nearly 3 inches thick, all tabbed, highlighted, and prepared with near-military precision. Her aides had spent the previous night making sure every document, every quote, every statistic was ready. She planned to embarrass Kennedy, to corner him publicly on what she believed were contradictions in his legislative proposals. She didn't just want to win the debate. She wanted a clip. Something viral. Something that would play non-stop on friendly networks. When Kennedy sat down, she offered a thin smile, the type that didn't reach her eyes. "You ready for this, Senator Kennedy?" she asked, loud enough for the nearby microphones to pick up. Kennedy slid into his chair, lifted his glasses with one finger, and drawled, "Congresswoman, I've wrestled alligators before breakfast. I reckon I'll survive whatever today has in store." Murmurs rippled through the room. The tension settled in instantly, electric and thrilling. The committee chair banged his gavel, and the questioning began. The first few exchanges were routine, economic forecasts, budget allocations, oversight concerns, but Waters sat patiently, waiting for her moment. She didn't interrupt, didn't lean forward, didn't scribble notes. She waited like a general planning her decisive strike. Finally, the chair announced her turn. "Representative Waters, you have 10 minutes. She stood with theatrical confidence, flipping open her stack of papers as though she was unsealing a classified dossier. The cameras zoomed in. "Senator Kennedy," she began, "you have repeatedly endorsed proposals that would slash community revitalization funds, alter long-standing regulation frameworks, and, according to your own past statements, reevaluate federal priorities that directly affect minority neighborhoods. My question is simple: do you actually understand the consequences of the policies you advocate? Because from where I sit, your positions reflect either ignorance or a deliberate disregard for the communities that rely on these programs." There it was. The strike. Even the chair glanced up, startled by her directness. The crowd reacted instantly. Some gasped, some smirked, and several phones in the audience started recording discreetly. A few reporters perked up, sensing the beginning of a viral moment. But Waters wasn't finished. She leaned forward, her voice firm, rhythmic, trained for moments like this. "In fact," she continued, waving a paper dramatically, "I have here a transcript of your previous interview where you stated that some federally funded housing projects do not meet basic oversight standards and may require a restructuring of distribution. You then implied, incorrectly, I might add, that funds were being misused by local representatives. Are you willing to stand by those comments today, in front of this entire committee, or are you ready to admit that you, Senator, simply don't understand the complexities of the communities you criticize?" Kennedy didn't move. Didn't blink. He simply watched her the way a chess master watches an opponent's queen slide across the board, a necessary moment, but not a surprising one. Waters delivered the final blow with a crisp voice. "So tell us, Senator Kennedy, are you uninformed, or are you irresponsible?" The line was sharp, perfectly crafted for media replay. Her aides almost beamed. They were certain she had finally cornered him. Kennedy calmly removed his glasses, folded them, and set them on the table. Then he leaned back slightly, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "Congresswoman Waters," he began, his voice soft but carrying effortlessly through the chamber, "I've always admired your enthusiasm. Truly. But your question reminds me of the time my neighbor's rooster tried to lecture the sun on how to rise. Loud, confident, but ultimately missing a few key facts. There were chuckles. Even some of Waters' allies couldn't suppress them. Waters frowned, caught off guard by the unexpected turn. Kennedy continued, his tone still polite but now sharper, controlled, and undeniably pointed. You asked if I understand the consequences of my proposals. I do. That's why I made them. I'm not criticizing the communities. Lord knows many of them are hurting. I'm criticizing the broken systems that take federal dollars meant for those communities and somehow lose them like a sock in a washing machine. He opened his thin folder, not the 3-inch thick binder Waters prepared, but a single, slim file. Well, you brought the New Testament of paperwork, he said, tapping her stack. I brought receipts. The room straightened instantly. I have here, he continued, pulling out several sheets, a series of reports, government audits, not campaign talking points, that show millions of dollars allocated to revitalization projects in several districts, including yours, Congresswoman, were either mismanaged, delayed, or never reached the intended programs. Waters stiffened. Kennedy flipped the pages one by one, each movement slow, deliberate, merciless. This audit from the Inspector General's office states, and I quote, lack of documentation, unexplained expenditures, and insufficient oversight led to substantial losses in federal housing grants. Another federal review states that multiple approved projects remained incomplete despite full disbursement of funds. And this, he said, holding up a final sheet, is a report filed by your own district committee acknowledging that progress evaluations were, how did they put it? Inconclusive due to administrative complexities. Gasps scattered across the room. Waters started flipping her own papers, desperate to find something, anything, to counter this unexpected ambush. Kennedy wasn't finished. You asked whether I'm uninformed or irresponsible, he said, leaning forward, eyes now locked on hers. But Congresswoman, respectfully, the real question might be why you chose to focus on my interviews instead of addressing the documented issues in your own backyard. Waters visibly bristled. That is not what those reports. Kennedy raised a hand slightly. Not to silence her, but to signal he wasn't done. And before you accuse me of cherry-picking, he added, I made sure to include the appendix pages that list which communities were most affected. The ones that didn't get the funds. The same communities you say I don't understand. The chamber went silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Kennedy's voice grew softer, almost sympathetic. I don't want to embarrass you, Congresswoman. Truly, I don't. But if you're gonna accuse me of ignorance, you best make sure you've done your own homework first. Otherwise, it starts looking like political theater instead of public service. He closed his folder slowly, almost ceremoniously. I'm not here to fight you, he concluded. I'm here to fix problems. If you want to help, I'd welcome it. If you want to throw stones, well, I'd suggest check in the glass house first. Waters opened her mouth but found no words. The silence around her was deafening. She looked down at her papers, then at the committee, then back at Kennedy. But nothing formed. The sharp retort she had prepared vanished like smoke. The chair shifted uncomfortably. After several agonizing seconds, he cleared his throat. Representative Waters, do you have a follow-up question? She swallowed, then shook her head slightly. No, she muttered, her voice barely audible. Kennedy leaned back, replacing his glasses with unhurried calm. The moment hit social media before the hearing even ended. Clips flooded timelines. Waters' explosive challenge contrasted with Kennedy's methodical dismantling. Commentators argued endlessly, partisans clashed, pundits spun narratives. But one thing became universally acknowledged: Maxine Waters had tried to humiliate him, and his response left her speechless. After the hearing adjourned, Kennedy stood, nodded politely to the chair, and began walking toward the exit. Reporters rushed forward, but he held up a hand gently. I'm not here for victory laps, he said. I'm just here to do my job. But as he walked out, One journalist called after him, "Senator, how did you stay so calm while Representative Waters confronted you?" Kennedy paused, adjusted his glasses again, and gave his trademark half-smile. "Well," he replied, "in Louisiana we say, when someone serves you a plate of hot air, best thing you can do is let it cool." The reporters burst into laughter, and Kennedy disappeared down the hallway. Waters remained behind in the chamber, her aides circling nervously, whispering options, drafting statements. But she sat in silence, staring at the reports Kennedy had handed her. No cameras were rolling now. No grandstanding. No audience. Just reality. For the first time that day, she wasn't thinking about clips or headlines. She was thinking about the communities, the very ones the hearing was supposed to be about. And whether she had indeed overlooked